A gay taunt begins.
Hello, Plymouth!
And he'll be on after the news.
LBC 97.3, Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Do you know, you don't have to miss a moment of London's biggest conversation. From just £2 a month, you can get full access to all of LBC's programmes, uninterrupted and available to download and listen to when and wherever you want. For full details of LBC's vast selection of programme podcasts, go to lbc.co.uk/podcasts and listen again.
It's 8:30, you're listening to Breakfast with me, Nick Ferrari, here on LBC 97.3. News time then, and Chris Rogers.
Thank you, Nick. Good morning. It's emerged 3 Liberal Democrat ministers have privately voiced unease about government policies which they've defended in public. Further recordings made by undercover reporters posing as constituents show they have reservations about welfare reform and university tuition fees. Vince Cable's been relieved of some of his ministerial responsibilities after he told undercover reporters he declared war on Rupert Murdoch over his attempt to secure full ownership of B-Sky B. The operator of Heathrow Airport, BAA, has told LBC they hope to have flights back to normal by tomorrow after disruption caused by the freezing weather. Heathrow Airport is currently running around 2/3 of flights. The East Coast train line out of King's Cross is returning to a near-normal service. Eurostar is also planning to run a near-normal service. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner says his force is facing its most challenging period since he took over. Sir Paul Stevenson says a combination of violent disorder on the streets, budget cuts and the forthcoming Olympics was stretching his force. He says he's concerned about the Met's Police current budgetary situation. An earthquake measuring 3.5 has struck Cumbria, and it was felt in Lancashire, southwest Scotland, Northumberland and the Isle of Man. Buildings shook when it happened in Coniston just before 11 o'clock last night, but no damage or injuries have been reported. Almost 250,000 people have been out of work for more than a year, according to the TUC. The union organisation says the number of long-term unemployed claiming job seekers allowance has more than doubled since the end of 2007. CNBC's Ross Westgate has more.
It's the long-term unemployed, of course, that you need to get to grips with most, but it's very hard to do. It involves an awful lot of retraining and new programs as well. The government's launching its work program today to try and get these people back into jobs.
The Football Association is meeting later for what's been called one of their most important meetings in recent history. The board are expected to choose the new FA chairman, with former Arsenal vice-chairman David Dein the clear favourite. They'll also hear a post-mortem of England's failure to host the 2018 World Cup. The FTSE at 8:15 was down 1 point at 59.50. London's weather: there is a Met Office advisory of widespread icy roads. Cloud, grey and overcast, but at least that has kept it above freezing point, but there may be some patchy drizzle or sleet later. With a maximum temperature of 3 degrees Celsius, right now it's 2 degrees at Leicester Square. This is LBC, it's just turned 8:33.
And we turn to Matt Jones at the Travel Desk. Matt.
Thanks, Nick. Yes, as we heard on the news there with Chris, the train situation, most operators trying to get back to normal today after the problems we had over the last couple of days. There are still a few operators that run into London that are running a revised service. Those include National Express East Anglia, Chiltern, First Capital Connect on the Bedford to Brighton route, and also Stansted Express. The situation out of King's Cross is improving. East Coast trains now able to run through Huntingdon and Peterborough following problems with the overhead line yesterday. However, trains leaving King's Cross to the northeast in Scotland are still subject to extended journey times of about 15 minutes. There are also some cancellations this morning as well. First Capital Connect trying to get back to normal as well out of King's Cross. However, trains through Peterborough are still being disrupted because of snow, and also a signalling problem at Alexandra Palace. At the airports this morning, at Heathrow, both runways now open, and they are now operating a number of flights. However, that's about 2/3 of what it is on a normal day. Plus, there's still a heavy backlog of passengers to clear. The advice that we had yesterday stands. If you're not booked onto a flight and you're not confirmed that on that flight, then don't turn up at the airport. All other London airports are open, but are still subject to some delays and cancellations. On the tubes this morning, Hanger Lane station on the Central Line is closed currently because of flooding. DLR has no service between Canning Town and Beckton because of power problems. And on the roads, actually pretty quiet this morning. The M20 in Kent's a slight problem. If you're heading coastbound on the M20, there was an accident between junction 4 and 5, Snodley Ashland and Maidstone. That's now been cleared out of the way. However, traffic on the approach is still looking pretty slow. LBC 97.3 travel. Your next update's in 15 minutes.
Join London's biggest conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast. LBC 97.3. 0845 60 973.
So we have one senior member of the cabinet in trouble for quotes declaring war on Rupert Murdoch, and now we've got another one who's done a festive gag that's backfired. This one even more senior than Vince Cable. It's George Osborne, the Chancellor. He's been plunged into a homophobia row after he called a gay shadow minister a pantomime dame. The Chancellor's comment had been intended as a bit of light-hearted humour and a dig at Labour's Chris Bryant. But Bryant failed to see the funny side and says Osborne has been nasty and homophobic. The exchange happened actually a couple of days ago. It was in front of the MPs for Treasury questions, the final session before Parliament broke up. Mr. Bryant likened Chancellor Osborne to Baron Hardup, Cinderella's father, because of his austerity cuts. The Chancellor of the Exchequer takes a particular delight, he said, in playing the role of Baron Hardup. Can I just say to him in the nicest Christmassy way possible, all his austerity talk does provide real anxiety for many of my constituents who worry about their winter fuel allowance. To the surprise of many, Mr. Osborne shot back and said, at least I'm not the pantomime dame. That now has been deemed to be homophobic. Is that true? Well, really, there's only one person we can turn to.
There is nothing like a day.
The doyen of dames, Christopher Biggins. Biggins joins me now. Morning, Christopher.
Good morning, Nick. How are you?
I'm very well, dear. Now, let's get all the necessary plugs out of the way. Where are you? What are you in? What are you starring in?
I'm with a 20 in the Grand Theatre, Wolverhampton in Aladdin.
And tickets available, of course, at all prices.
Well, we're so busy, but there are a few. We can just fit you in at the back, Nick.
I'd love to do that, Biggins. Is it homophobic to call someone a pantomime dame?
No. I mean, I think it's quite a funny joke. If he called him Baron Hardup, it's quite a good idea to call him back, a pantomime dame. Homophobic, not at all. I mean, I'm disgusted that they think it's homophobic.
Do you think...
Yeah,
Sorry, go on, Chris, go on.
No, it's just a bit of fun, I would have thought, I mean, if he's going to make a retort like that, then that's quite funny, I think.
Increasingly, it's difficult for politicians, people like you, people in the public eye. You almost have to watch every word you say because there seems to be a mania to trip people up, doesn't there?
Isn't it appalling? I mean, honestly, it upsets me so much because you can't say anything. I mean, we'll just be a silent nation going around nodding at each other or shaking our heads. I mean, it's pathetic.
Lastly, I think you'd probably say these people just need to grow up, show a bit of backbone and get on and take some of the knocks and jibes of human life, really.
Absolutely, and, see the funny side of life.
Absolutely, and you can see the funny side, the serious side, and a bit of singing too, I'm sure, Biggins, if you go to Wolverhampton this Christmas. Is that right?
You can. I'd like to wish all your listeners a very Merry Christmas, Nick, and a very Happy New Year.
Bless you, and to you, Christopher. Great speaking to you. Christopher Biggins, the doyen of dames. There he is. He's up in Aladdin at the Grand Theatre in Wolverhampton. How ridiculous. How ridiculous. Bit of fun with Baron Hardup. There was also a Prince Charming gag from Brian. So the Chancellor comes back with, at least I'm not the pantomime dame. And it all kicks off. Steve's advice upon this. Hello, Steve. Good morning.
Morning. Yeah, initially when you read out the Prince Charming thing.
The Prince Charming line, yeah.
Yeah, but that was the whole key to it. He stood up and he said, will you be more like Prince Charming? Turned to Osborne, and Osborne said, and it was the delivery from the Labour politician that got the response that it did from Osborne.
Yes.
Sort of, you can talk, sort of. Better than being the dame who's the moaner. Everyone knows what a pantomime dame is. They're the wicked one, trying to rile everyone up.
Yeah.
Nothing more than that. He wouldn't have been thinking about gay, this, that, or other. And I don't think it's that insensitive. I really don't. He watched the footage. Nobody could draw anything from it except it was a witty response to his comment about Prince Charming. Nothing more and less.
And so, lastly, if it just so happens that Mr. Bryan is gay, but if it had been a straight bloke, he'd have had the same retort, you think?
There's no two ways about it. The other thing I would say is that, you get Star Wars and all these other groups standing up, yelling at the top of their voices. I don't care, and I think most of the general public don't care if someone is gay, white, black, rich, or whatever. They want to get on, but to continue on about, oh, I'm gay, I don't really care what somebody is. Most people don't even think.
Lastly, while I've got the benefit of you on the line, Steve, Vince Cable yesterday, what should he have done?
All an honest thought.
Yeah, I think it's diminished him by not doing that, hasn't it?
He looks weak, and to be honest with you, it's disappointing that there's a facade that all is well in the garden, as it were, and all roses. The problem is this, that you have a deputy leader who is loving the fact that he has got the power, and his minions who are basically despising the fact that if it had been pursued, it would have been potentially a different story, I think, altogether.
Steve, thanks for that. Thanks for your input. 20 minutes before 9 is the time. What an extraordinary day for the Prime Minister.